What is up, everybody? Happy Monday evening, or for those of you who are not in the Eastern time zone, Tuesday morning. I don't even know what time it might be. But welcome back to the Full Court Press, our 9th episode. And we're in the midst of the NBA playoffs. We basically are the pregame show for the Hawks-Sixers game tonight, I believe. And I'm joined by the lovely gentlemen, Ariel Atias and Marco Romo tonight. Fellas, how are we doing tonight?
Great. Excited for the hoops. It's been a fun day on Twitter. With some of the news that's come out. I'm sure we'll address that pretty early on in here. But it's been a fun day, and I'm looking forward to talking some hoops.
Oh, yeah. Ready for Sixers Hawks in a bit, Clippers and Jazz later. I love basketball. I love to say it. I love to watch it. And I love talking about it with the two homies.
Yes, yeah, it's been a fun playoffs, especially these last few games. I think. We'll get to the Suns in a little bit. I want to start with them, but let's just address the news that Ariel was talking about. So it came out. I didn't get to read the article because I don't pay for The Athletic, but Luka Doncic, I guess, has been unhappy with certain rotations and other things within the Dallas organization. I don't know if you guys read the article yourselves. You want to extrapolate on that, but do we kind of want to make things clear that Luka's just not going to go anywhere ever, or at least for the next 6 years?
So my understanding of the hit piece, which is essentially what it was that came out today, was that, there's a growing sentiment within the Mavericks organization that this shadow GM figure could potentially, and the impact that he has on roster decisions, maybe rotations and some of the things that Carlisle does, etc., could potentially impact Luka's wanting to be there long-term, down the road. As far as Luka being unhappy right at this moment, I don't think there was any indication in there of that. So to everybody who's been going off and doing all the Luka photoshops and all the stuff that we do on Heat Twitter, it's fun. I partake myself. That's what we do. If you're part of Heat Twitter, it's just one of the things we do. But let's get real for a second. Luka's not going anywhere. If he does, it's down the road before that even becomes a consideration of any sort. It's not a thing right now. Mark Cuban is very smart. They're not going to be, well, anyways, I'll digress on that. But they're not going to trade Luka just because because he's unhappy or whatever it is. That's a generational talent. You do absolutely everything in your power as an organization to keep him happy. They would do absolutely everything that they could before they entertain the notion of moving Luka Doncic. So I think we need to let that one go on Heat Twitter.
Definitely. He just outplayed Kawhi Leonard in a 7-game series with no help. He's 22 years old. He's not leaving Dallas. Mark Cuban is not letting him leave Dallas. Marco, any thoughts on this, or is this all just nonsense?
I mean, it's not all nonsense. There is some bad stuff that the Mavericks are doing behind the scenes. But let's take a step back and remember they did even worse stuff with the HR very hard to stomach.
This isn't
stuff.
new for Dallas.
Yeah, but this is like nothing compared to that. But there is a growing sense, I guess, around the Dallas organization that, you can't have your prime number one guy this dissatisfied in year 3. You got to get ahead of this before it gets out. You should have gotten ahead of it before this story leaked out itself. And Mark Cuban saying, what he said on Twitter, even though he was already quoted in the story, which was weird to me because Tim Cato, he's a good reporter. I don't know him personally, but I've heard from people that I know he's a good reporter. He gets behind stuff. He doesn't let something get out that he knows isn't true. And I think they needed to get out ahead of it before this got out. But I think they'll correct some stuff, whether it's like getting people in the front office, which I think they should. New people, new voices. You can't have the same voices over and over again, expecting different stuff, especially that with the fact that they haven't had a decent playoff run in a decade. So you need to at least make some changes here and there. But yeah, for now, it's nothing. It's nothing the Mavs can't deal with. Ask me again in 5 years, I might change my answer. But for now, Don't worry about it. But we'll have fun with the photoshops though. They're fine.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna Photoshop every single player into a Heat uniform. I'm personally probably gonna work on a Jalen Brunson Photoshop because I guess no one's made that out of the disrespect to my king. But let's get to some of the comments here. We got Karthik Sundaresan. I apologize if I botched that. Gabe Vincent sweepstakes. You already know I'm going to find a way to fit Gabe Vincent propaganda into this hour-long stream that we're going to have. So don't worry, that's coming at some point. We got Dren, Luka, Gabe, Omer, future big three. It's better than what the Nets have right now. Clarence, John Louis, Zion might move before. I actually would not be surprised either. Like I'm not saying that Pelicans would move Zion. I think he'll end up staying there for a long period of time, but I just think that's how immovable Luka is. He's probably the single most valuable asset in the NBA. I don't see Dallas letting that slip through their hands. Ariel, I'll let you get to this question from Ryue. Is Jeremy Grant a realistic option for us? So I guess cost of acquisition and fit, if you want to get into that really quick.
Okay, so cost of acquisition, technically speaking, you've got to get to about 16 million in outgoing salary in order to bring in. I believe he makes 20 million, give or take, something in there. So you need to send out about 16 million. Iguodala / Goran, one of them plus an asset, a young asset, gets you there. I don't know if that's enough value. You might have to unlock the OKC pick and then send another first. It kind of depends on what it is that Detroit wants to do this summer. What direction are they going in? Because Jeremy Grant has proven to be a good player, right? Like he took quite a step this season and really grew his game as a player. But and he's on a great contract as well for the production that he gave them. But is that just good numbers on a bad team? I don't know. I think there was some improvement there. Can the Heat make it happen? Look, I think he'd be a great fit next to Bam. And if he does become available and the Pistons do want to entertain trade offers for him, I'm sure the Heat will be in that room for sure.
Yeah, it'll probably cost you like Hero Plus, but the fit, like you said, is really, really good. We like that. We got Karmic in the comments. Dallas should trade Luka and build around Jalen Brunson. Now that's a good comment right there. You already know Jalen Brunson. I'm all about that stuff. So let's get into these playoffs, right? Because this Suns-Nuggets series, I believe none of us expected it to be a sweep. We all thought that the Suns were going to end up winning this series, I believe. And the Suns just blew them out. Far and away the better team. They were honestly ridiculously impressive. And, I mean, you watched just every third quarter and the second half when the Suns needed a bucket. They were just able to manufacture it in whatever way, whether it was Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, or the point guard, CP3, who just routinely took over the end of these games. I guess let's talk about the Suns first. Ariel, what did you like the most from the Suns in this series?
The man you just touched on, Chris Paul. Dude was awesome. We were concerned about the injury, the shoulder in that Lakers series. Like you said, we all picked the Suns going into this series. In my opinion, what I had said was like they were the better team. I just think they can dictate the pace a little bit better. I think Chris Paul, by virtue of being a lead ball handler, while Jokic can do that as well, because Chris Paul is in that role, he's better able to kind of dictate the pace, whereas Jokic depends on guards, wings to get him the ball. Sometimes he'll bring the ball up the court, but generally speaking, he's not the guy bringing the ball up the court. And so Chris Paul has a leg up on Jokic there in terms of dictating the pace of these games. The Suns can play at any pace. They can play slow. They can play fast. But Chris Paul, man, like whatever was going on with that shoulder, I mean, it is good. Gone. He's good to go. I mean, he averaged 25.5 points per game, 10 assists, 5 boards. He shot 63% from the field, 75% from three, and didn't miss a single free throw over those 4 games. Those are ridiculous numbers. Devin Booker was great. He averaged 25, 8, and 4, something like that on decent percentages. He didn't shoot the 3 ball particularly well, but man, they're just such a well-oiled machine with depth, switchability, and versatility at every position. DeAndre Ayton has improved just all around. And he gives them what they need at that position. I don't think they have any weaknesses on the roster, and I'm very high on this Suns team. I think a lot of the NBA world has come, to that side of the fence in terms of how we view the Suns, but I think they might be better than we're giving them credit for. They give me last year Miami Heat vibes, not necessarily because they play the same style of game, but just that throughout that run, I started feeling like I think this Heat team is a team of destiny. And of course, we know what happened in the finals and what the eventual outcome was. I'm not saying that's going to be the same outcome for the Suns, but I get the same vibe from them that I had about the Heat on their way to the finals last year.
Marco, I think you might be on mute.
They both know who they are. Like in the
There we go.
playoffs, they knew who they were, and like they. There we go. All right. But yeah, I said they both know who they are. Like the Miami team from last year. They. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're good.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, they both like they run their simple sets. It's a high screen and roll every time. And Chris Paul is like a master at that. He's the perfect pick and roll player. He's the best point guard I've ever seen. Like probably the best point guard any of us have seen. That, and the only other guy that you put there would be Chris Paul, or I mean Steph Curry. And that's a good argument. I'm a big Steph fan, but I think Chris he's a Hall of Famer, like first ballot. I think if he gets a championship this year, it's going to be like his Dirk championship run, pretty much. And I really love the way that anytime the Suns would give up a small run, like the Nuggets would get within like 4 points, and every game it was Chris Paul would be like, "All right, no, give me a high screen roll here, Jay. Get Michael Porter Jr.'s back that can't like straighten itself out, and let me attack him. I'm gonna get into my mid range. I'm gonna hit 2 straight. You're gonna get smoked. I'm gonna hit this Jay over Jokic. He's gonna be in a deep drop. You can't do anything about it." And he'll drain those shots pretty easily. And I said that if he doesn't get injured in the first round, they beat the Lakers in no more than 5 games. That series would have been over way sooner than it was, even with Anthony Davis injured. And it did help that the other guys were like finding their shot. You know, like I tweeted this out the other day that Jay Crowder, the second round is his round. The past 4 years where he had a team go outside of the first round, the first 2 rounds he shot no higher than 33%. And that was with Miami last year against the Pacers. And in the second round, he shot 38, 39, 45, and this year he shot 55% with the Suns. He's a second round killer, I guess. I found that very interesting. But especially when Jay's going to get hot, you can't leave anybody out there outside of DeAndre Ayton, and he's a rim runner anyway. And that's like Chris Paul's best friend when you have shooters to spread that out with. I did love that they never went away from their simple double drags or single drag or like Spain pick and rolls. They just ran the same kind of stuff over and over again because the Nuggets couldn't defend it. So you're not going to get away from what's working. So it was death by 1,000 cuts. That's what I've described the Suns as. They've been like that all year. I do like the Team of Destiny stuff. I'm going to be rooting for them to get there. I just love this Suns team. They're so fun.
You're muted, brother.
I was on mute. There we go. For Chris Paul to be able to make it to the finals without a bona fide superstar before the season, I think would be really good for his legacy. Because he had the whole Harden thing flame out. It didn't work out. He had the super team sort of thing in the Los Angeles with the Clippers, and that flamed out next to Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. Just to see Chris Paul succeed at this level with this kind of team, with Monty Williams as his coach, like it's all come full circle for him. And the storyline is fantastic. Like at this point, you can't be rooting against the Suns unless they're beating your team, in which case I get it because they're curb stomping almost everybody that they play this year. They've been the best team in the NBA since late January, early February. So credit to the Suns, man. They've built an absolutely unbelievable team. Credit to James Jones. These young guys also are ridiculously impressive. Mm-hmm. I've already said it before, but I want to shout out DeAndre Ayton one more time because him holding his own in a series against Anthony Davis, although he may not have been healthy, and Nikola Jokic, it's only getting easier from here, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, Rudy Gobert, yes, but Rudy Gobert doesn't bring that offensive firepower, so you really only have to try to
box out.
Yeah. Rudy doesn't do much offensively. He's a great screen setter and all that good stuff, but in terms of his own offensive production in the matchup, it's not the toughest thing in the world for Ayton. So credit to DeAndre Ayton. I want to get to the Nuggets side of things, but actually one of my good friends, Tyler Yarnell, in the comments, He said Nuggets team is about to get so expensive with Jokic, MPJ, and Gordon extensions incoming. So I think Jokic already got extended. I want to talk about MPJ because he's had some moments within this series where within the playoffs in his career where he's been really, really good offensively, but defensively teams seem to target him and it works. Off ball, he's not very good. On ball, he should have the tools, but I think from a mental state, he isn't really there. But that extension, I think he's eligible for it this offseason or next. Would you guys feel comfortable with giving the third max slot on this team to Michael Porter Jr.? Or do you think they should try to capitalize on his value and get a more proven asset in return?
I probably should have looked into this before the show. Now I'm regretting it. Do we know if he's eligible this summer or next offseason?
Well, he was drafted 3 years ago, so I believe so.
So they can give it to him, and then it kicks in after next season.
Yes.
Similarly to what the Heat did with Bam.
Yes.
Look, I think we lost Marco. I'm sure he'll be back. Yeah, as far as giving him that money, I think that they're kind of in a spot where you either give it to him and you hope that he turns into the player that all of the physical tools and the skills and the potential projects that he can be, and that the mental part of the game catches up to the physical, right? Because you made a great point, Gad. Like, he's got the tools. He can shoot. He's long. He's athletic. He's tall. Like, if the defensive anticipation and just the overall awareness all around the court can improve, he could be a really special player. Like, he could really, really
be your third guy for sure. At a minimum, maybe he can be even better.
Exactly. Like, he projects as a type of player that could maybe bump Jamal Murray back to the third guy. Look, I would entertain dealing him if there's a star on the market that you fit nicely between Jokic and Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr., I think, has quite a good amount of value in terms of a young asset in the NBA. So I would look at moving him if I could, if it makes the team better and it's a player that I feel like I can build as a cornerstone with Jokic and Jamal Murray. Otherwise, you got to pay him. Like, I mean, those are the two options there. Do I feel great about it? Not necessarily, but I'm doing it.
Yeah. Oh, this comment pretty much does it perfectly. You have to, right? Marco, do you have to sign MPJ to this extension?
Your hands are kind of tied if you're the Nuggets. This is similar, like Bam stuff, I guess. Bam isn't like this. MPJ is not Bam though. I guess somebody compared it. I forget who it was on Twitter. They compared it to the CJ McCollum kind of conundrum that Portland's had the past, half decade. Like, well, you can't really afford to not have him, and if you do have him though, it's a decent enough contract and enough potential to where you can convince somebody else to trade for him. People have been talking before the season even started that he could be dangled in a Bradley Beal trade that Denver would eventually try to go for. People even in Denver were like, no, we're not trading MPJ for that. But it's the Tyler Hero stuff again. But definitely, I'd do that to pair him with Jokic. If I were Denver, and you're working with more of a margin for error, considering Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are so young, and you can operate around them. It's a lot. It would be a lot harder if Jokic was in his mid-30s or something. I guess it would be harder if you would. It'd be like the Miami situation, which is we won't get into that. So Denver does have more room to play with that. In terms of, especially with MPJ's age as well. I think it's tradable even if you do sign him to this. Your money's going to be tied up. The question I have more is probably the Aaron Gordon stuff, and I'm guessing they'll be more reluctant with that. I think he's on contract for another year, so I guess you don't have to answer that immediately. I'll be worried about that, especially with the fit. I think you can start both of them. You saw how that worked when everybody was healthy. It helped that you had more help on the perimeter to take the load off MPJ. He's a good third option for you. He's not really a second option guy at this point in his career. Maybe he can be. That's what you're hoping for, but I think your hands are kind of tied. But it's not a bad problem to have if you're the Nuggets. You just hope that the back stuff gets itself sorted out eventually, because that's my biggest worry.
I just want to jump in right quick because I was looking at his numbers. I knew that he was averaging close to 20 a game and he gets you 6, 7, 8 rebounds a night. And I know he's a good shooter. I didn't realize he shot 45% from three on over 6 attempts per game this season. Like,
he took a leap, and it was not only catch and shoot, it was pull up shooting too. He really, really took a leap this year. Like, MPJ is one of the more valuable young players in the league. It's just like, one, because he plays behind Murray and Jokic in Denver, and it's in Denver, that people haven't really caught on to that. But MPJ is legit, and a lot of the stuff that he needs area of improvement. Oh, there we go. He's covering my face now. It's all mental, and once that catches up, he's going to be a really special player. You definitely pay MPJ, in my opinion. Worst case scenario, you end up moving him eventually. He loses a little bit of value, but you're not going to be selling him for pennies on the dollar because he's still a really young player with proven young talent. So you don't really let those players walk. One other takeaway that I had from watching this series, and I had the thought in every single game, is I don't know how Portland can look at what happened in this series, a Denver team that Denver looked like the better team. Dame Lillard had to have that crazy 55 point game in order to beat them in double overtime. Or did they win that game? I don't even remember.
No, Denver won that game.
Yeah. Like Dame had that kind of series, right? And he was just showing up game after game, and the supporting cast still couldn't do enough. And they really don't have the assets to get that much better. If I'm Portland, I'm looking at that series and I'm thinking maybe it is time to blow it up and see what we can get in return, because it's tough. That's just one thing that I thought about that series. I don't want to dive too much into Portland because we're going to have many more conversations about them later on. But that was just one thing that I thought was really, really interesting.
I want to hold on. I want to give you guys a little trivia. You know how many turnovers Chris Paul had in these whole playoffs? You want to know how many he's had in these whole playoffs?
Playoffs, I'll say 7.
I'll go 9.
You guys were actually pretty. These are both rounds, by the way. He had 12, but he had
8 in the first round.
No, he had 6.
No, 7. He had
6
7 in the first round. He had 5 in this.
Basketball Reference says he had 6 in both rounds.
I don't know. I listen to ESPN. They're always wrong. So
regardless, that's whether it's 12 or 13 over a 10-game sample. That's like 1.2. It's ridiculous.
No, okay.
Oh my gosh.
He had 14. And he had 87. So that's an insane ratio.
Wow.
That's point God. What can you say? CP, man. I really hope this is the year he's able to get to the finals. I know I have my Clippers agenda
with a bad shoulder.
With a bad shoulder, yeah. No, but he's been incredible. Let's talk about the other Western Conference series though, because it looked like the Clippers were dead in the water. Mike Conley was going to come back. Mike Conley didn't come back, and the Clippers won. And now we have a series. It looks like maybe the Clippers figure something out. I'm not really sure. What do you guys think about this series? Do you think this is still the Jazz in the driver's seat, or is it now just like flip a coin at this point? Because, I mean, they play tonight. If the Jazz win, obviously they're in the driver's seat. But 2-1, I think the Clippers stole momentum with the way that they won that game. Who do you guys have winning this series right now?
I'm going to stick. I think I had Clippers in 6 on the last full court press that we did. I'm going to stick with it only because Kawhi Leonard, when down 0-2, might be the best player in NBA history. Like what he does, it's almost every time one of his teams goes down 0-2, he flips a switch. We saw it as recently as the last round, right, against Dallas. And when, like I said, when that dude decides to turn it on, he is just, there's very few, less than 5 players in the league that can do what he does on both sides of the court. Dren, Utah for the agenda. My guy, you know where we're at with that. But
always.
I just don't know, man. I will say that I feel like the Jazz are the better all-around team in terms of cohesiveness and just having more just better players at multiple positions, whereas the Clippers feel like they have the better top-end talent. But Donovan Mitchell has absolutely ascended. Like, he is taking another leap. He's doing it on the biggest stage, and he's becoming a real household name. So I think I'm going to stick with the Clippers. I just don't feel like the Jazz have the wings that are really, really going to bother and just throw guys like Kawhi and Paul George off of their games. I think those guys, whenever they decide to take over a game in that series, they've got the pull-up mid-range jumper, they've got the three-point shot off the pick and roll, they've got whatever they want, more or less, except for going to the rim, which is where Rudy Gobert poses problems. But it's been kind of a funky series. I'm going to stick with the Clippers only because I don't want to go back on my prediction, but hey, man, like you guys said, if the Jazz go up tonight and take that W, this one might be a wrap.
I feel like you.
I like what Ariel's saying though about not walking back the prediction, because I had the same prediction. Again, I don't feel the Clippers never make me feel strong about anything. They always got to do it the hard way, and
So true.
I can't. I don't know how their fans even survive this. I know all the fans that I follow on Twitter, they're all great guys. And I don't know how they're all not the Joker or something. But yeah, for now, I'm going to stick with...
There's only like 8 of them.
Yeah, I follow all of them. But the thing with the Clippers is that the 2 games that they lost, they weren't easy games for Utah. It reminds me of the series last year that Boston and Miami had. Everybody pointed out the point differential and how the game that Boston won eventually in that series, that big blowout they had, was more of an indicator of how the series should have been, because the 2 losses were so close for the Celtics. So I think tonight's a big game, because Miami won that game 4 last year to go up 3-1, or else that series probably goes 7, and who knows what happens then. And that's what the Clippers, they need to get this to 2-2. I don't trust them to come back from 3-1. I barely trusted them to win a series up 3-1. And I like what Ariel said about the big wing stuff. Royce O'Neal is trying his heart out. I got to give credit to Bojan Bogdanovic, though. He does a great job of staying in front of Kawhi, which is something he did against LeBron too back in the Pacers days. He'd still get killed, but he wouldn't give up drives to the rim as easily as most of the other teammates. So you're going to stick him on there as much as you can, but that's going to hurt him on the offensive end. And you saw that last game. He wasn't hitting his shots as he normally does. So you wonder if that's going to wear down on him. But yeah, I'm going to stick with the Clips for now. I think they have figured out something with the small ball lineup. I don't know what they were doing with the DeMarcus Cousins stuff. I'm glad that Ty Lue figured out, okay, this isn't going to work. And I'm glad he's playing Terrence Mann more over Rondo, because Rondo hasn't given them anything for the past 6 games at all. So you're going to go with the guys you like and the guys you trust, but there comes a point to where you have to go with the guys that are actually producing on the floor. And that's one thing that Ty Lue has done throughout the playoffs. He gets it. It takes him a while, but he gets it, which is more than you can say for a lot of coaches. And I'm gonna stick with the Clips, but I am prepared to die and prepared to go with the Kawhi agenda if not.
Ooh, okay. So I've been on the Clippers for the last 3 months or so now. I really don't care who wins this series, if I'm being completely honest, because my heart is almost shifted completely to just rooting for Chris Paul and Devin Booker. But I think the series goes 7, and in a 7-game series, I'm going to take Kawhi Leonard. If Donovan Mitchell's able to pull this off, credit to him. I mean, like Ariel said, he's really taking that lead. Donovan Mitchell he's going head to head. He doesn't care. He's special. He's really, really special. Utah has a special, special player for the future. So I'm really excited to see if whoever wins this series is going to be Mitchell versus Booker. It's going to be Kawhi and PG versus Booker and CP3. It's going to be really fun to watch regardless. So what I've gotten all I wanted from the Western Conference. They've given me compelling series after compelling series. And it's been great. It's been really fun to watch. So in the Western Conference, technically speaking, is Phoenix the favorite right now? Do you guys think that Phoenix should be the favorite?
I think yes.
Ariel?
I'm going to go with yes. I think I just trust what they have at the top end of the roster in addition to what surrounds them. They're just, like I said, they're good everywhere. They have so many solid two-way players that contribute and play meaningful minutes. Like Michael Bridges might be, or Mikal Bridges. I always call him Michael. I'm not exactly sure how to say it, but regardless, that Bridges kid is just such a high level of role player. He's like the quintessential 3-and-D role player that you need. And he's not just a 3-and-D player. He can do some stuff on the ball. We've seen him flash that in spurts. He's got a lot of other layers to his game, and he's just getting better all the time. DeAndre Ayton, young player, getting better. Boss man Jay Crowder, second-round legend, comes up big in big spots. Like, I just think with Chris Paul at the head of the snake there, this is one of the best teams, the teams that fit him best that he's ever had in his career. And you're seeing it play out. Like, they look like the best team in the West to me.
I gotta agree with like everything that Ariel brought up. They've been the most impressive team like the whole playoffs. Who are you gonna go? Anybody else? You're not gonna go with the Jazz with the player, with the teams they.
It's been the Suns. It's been the Suns for sure.
And you're also not gonna trust the health that the Jazz are currently having. Like the Donovan Mitchell stuff is not gonna go away. That seems to be a lingering issue. Mike Conley's still not gonna play tonight, which is big for people who are betting on the Clippers.
Oh, we got news in the chat. Is that actually confirmed, Tyler? Are you trolling us?
Second team all defense? There's no way. The Heat actually got respect on a national stage after being bubble guppies.
Yeah, no, Greg Sylvander tweeted out.
So Bam and Jimmy were second team all defense?
Both.
Ah, very interesting. Okay, well, that's positive news. I didn't expect to talk about the Heat until probably around like the 45-minute mark. But go Jimmy and Bam. Good for them. Happy for them. Definitely much deserved. They've been fantastic this year defensively. Underwhelming in the playoffs, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. What I did want to get to here is the Eastern Conference because, okay, so Sixers and Hawks, they play tonight. Do you guys think it's the Sixers are winning this series now? Have they just imposed their will? They've kind of figured out Trae Young a little bit, or really quickly, because I want to talk at length with Bucks Nets, but do you guys think the Sixers are just a better team and they're going to win the series?
I thought the Hawks were the better team going into the series, to be honest with you. I might have been wrong. I wish we were doing this show after tonight's game because I feel like it's a very Jekyll and Hyde series and that we just see very different – just the game is just played so differently from game to game. Like if the Hawks are playing at their best, Trae Young's controlling everything and, you know, he's dicing up whoever's guarding him and any kind of coverage the Sixers are throwing at him. He's drawing fouls on everybody and he makes ridiculous shots. And then you have nights where that's just not the case. And then you remember like, oh, that's why the Sixers had the best record in the East. Joel Embiid is unstoppable. Ben Simmons, when he decides to, you know, be good, is really good. So it's kind of a tough series for me. I think I'm leaning, like if I have to pick it right now, I'm leaning towards changing my pick and taking the Sixers in 6, I guess. But I don't know. I think the DeAndre Hunter loss, like him definitively being out, is a huge blow for the Hawks. And I wonder how the series would have changed if he had been healthy.
Yeah. Injuries have been a really big question mark pretty much all across the board this year.
The Hawks have been forced to start Solomon Hill. If you put DeAndre Hunter out there, it's a much better release valve for Trae Young because he's not utilizing that high. They're trapping him a lot, and he's not utilizing that to his advantage because Solomon Hill's getting that pass and he's bricking those shots that DeAndre Hunter was making in the first round. And there's also credit to the Sixers who are defending that stack pick and roll a lot better than the Knicks ever did. They're actually coming to the level of the screen, and Ben Simmons is able to get through the screen. Matisse Thybulle in his short minutes, he's capable of replacing Danny Green, so you're not going to feel that loss with his injury. I think he's out for the rest of the series. And that's like they can deal with that. Where the Hawks, they're going to have a tougher time dealing with the guy like Hunter, who I thought was going to be big this series. And as a big Hunter fan, it really like hurts to see him not out there. I would have imagined he would have been on Ben Simmons. He would have been more capable of that matchup than whoever they're throwing out there. But it kind of stinks that injuries ruin a lot of series. We'll get that again to the next series we're going to talk about. But yeah, the Hunter stuff really hurts. But shout out to Kevin Huerter. He stepped up. The dude's been lights out throughout the series. He's a pretty decent defender that you can put out there. It's just his size isn't enough for this Sixers team to deal with. You're not going to put him on Tobias Harris, who's had quietly a pretty good series. All credit to him. So the Sixers are on just enough offense to get through the Hawks, I think, this series. And again, you never know who you're going to get tonight, though. Like, Ben Simmons is the most like insane disappearing act of the playoffs. So maybe he goes for 2 points. Maybe it doesn't matter. So who knows? But I think they've done enough defensively. I think I've been really impressed with their defense, and especially with the way they've defended the Capella lobs. Like, the Knicks weren't doing that stuff. The Hawks aren't used to that. No shame for the Hawks, though. Nobody thought they'd really even be here midway through the season. So whichever way the series goes, I think they're going to be happy with that.
Definitely. The Hawks have taken that step. Ariel, you look like you had something to say.
Yeah, real quick. Just want to read out the all-defensive teams. First team, Rudy Gobert, Ben Simmons, Draymond Green, Giannis, and Drew Holiday. Second team, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Matisse Thybulle, Kawhi Leonard.
No complaints from me. I think maybe you could put Jimmy over Drew.
That's what I was thinking.
But outside of that, like, I think that's pretty fair. Pretty well-deserved all around. That's like probably the most satisfied I've been with the all-NBA defensive teams in quite a while. So good on the voters for maybe finally getting something right. In terms of the Sixers and Hawks, I said Sixers in 7 last time that we were here, and I think I might push it to Sixers in 6. I think the Hawks actually do win tonight, though. I think Atlanta's just going to be rocking. They kind of know this is going to be a must-win game, and I've seen Trae Young stand up. I think they're going to try to get these role guys involved and make it a real team effort instead of just Trae Young just backpacking their team to a victory. I think it's going to be a pretty good game for the Hawks. I think it'll be close because the Sixers are obviously, I think, the better team, but I think the Hawks are actually able to pull this one out, and then the Sixers get the last 2 and they get rolling. I would be surprised if the Sixers role guys in a bit of an expanded role tonight maybe falter a little bit, whether it's Maxey, Korkmaz, Thybulle, whatever it may be. I think with Danny Green being out, maybe Seth Curry, but Seth Curry is also a really, really efficient guy. I think they might falter a little bit because they've been pretty solid throughout this series. So Sixers, Hawks, I think the Sixers are still the better team. It'll be interesting to see who they get in the Eastern Conference Finals on the other side of the Eastern Conference bracket with the Nets and the Bucks. So who do we have winning this series? Because obviously injuries, it looks like Kyrie is not going to be able to at least be 100% or play for the rest of the series. James Harden also ruled out the day before, most likely will not be 100% or be able to play in this series as well. Marco, who do you have winning the series? And then I guess I'll have another question after that once we get the answers.
I hate doing this, but I have the Bucks winning if Harden or Irving don't come back within the next 2 games. And if they do come back, I have the Nets winning. I hate giving myself that safe that cushion, but I have the right to. You can't tell me what to do. But yeah, it all depends on that. It's hard to see the Nets continue to shoot as bad as they have the past 2 games. I expect the role players to come out with more efficient shooting like the first 2 games they had. Role players play better at home. We all know that. I expect them to have less of KD on the ball. I think there was too much Kevin Durant creating for others. That's not really his thing. He's more efficient coming off of those pin down screens or those high handoffs with Blake Griffin. Except that PJ Tucker's done a really good job when he's not fouling him every possession of getting through those screens, which helps. I think also he's going to get to the line a lot more. Those coaches are going to be in the refs' ears before the game. They're going to be like, oh, watch out for PJ Tucker or whoever's guarding Kevin Durant. They're getting physical. Somebody brought this up on the No Dunks podcast I listened to. Kevin Durant doesn't complain a lot about, or he doesn't sell contact like that. He has the rip through move, but he doesn't really like sell stuff like that. I guess it's because he's really limber and stuff, so you can never really tell. But yeah, I also noticed that he really doesn't. He's not a hardened guy, which is what they miss. And he would have fouled out the Bucks within like 2 minutes with the way they were playing last game. But yeah, it's going to come down to like those 2 ball handlers. They need a guy who can handle the ball with Kevin Durant.
Absolutely. Ariel?
Marco makes amazing points. I'm with him. I think I'm with you on about 80% of what you said. The one area where I disagree is that if Kyrie Irving and or one of between him and James Harden comes back in the next game or the game after, that the Nets might still win the series. It is possible, of course. But the way I see it is, especially if it's James Harden, because I don't know who's closer to returning, but James Harden, who's been out for a little bit longer than Kyrie has, to just throw him into a situation where you're down 3-2 or it's 2-2, but let's assume he doesn't return in the next game. You come back, you're down 3-2, you're in Milwaukee, and now you've got to win a massive high-pressure game. It's kind of a tough spot to be in. I think if both teams are healthy from the jump, or if the Nets have if Kyrie doesn't go down, that the Nets win this series. But it's a tough spot when Kevin Durant's out there without one or both of the other two guys. He's got to do everything on offense. Like, yes, you get some support from their guards and Joe Harris sometimes, but man, in the last couple of games, Joe Harris has shot like 4 of 19 from the field. He's had 11 total points over those 2 games. And a lot of those looks were good looks. Now, a lot of those also came with Kyrie Irving on the floor. So now that Kyrie Irving's off the floor, they're going to be sending help every single time Kevin Durant tries to make a move on offense and do anything. They can help, and it's going to be on guys like Joe Harris and the other role players to make those shots. So I do trust them to break out of this little funk that they've been in. They are good. They've got good shooters across the roster. So even if it isn't Kevin Durant killing you, though I think Kevin Durant kind of has to go supernova here, I do trust Joe Harris specifically to break out of that slump a little bit. I still think that, if Kyrie and or Harden don't come back, I think this thing is over. If one of them comes back, I think there's a chance that the Nets could at least push it to 7. And then in a game 7, you never know what's going to happen. But barring a return, I think this one's over.
I think Harden's probably the guy that's closer to coming back, especially because he's doing on-court stuff. He's been out longer. I think Steve Nash said that, he's building endurance at this point, and that hammy's still bothering him, though. So I think he's probably closer. And he's probably the guy that the Nets would want back more than Kyrie at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, he elevates others, and that's something that they really need right now, because they don't have someone who's consistently creating for those role guys. And, yes, you have Bruce Brown catching lobs from Blake Griffin or whatever it may be. Center Bruce Brown is not something that I really expected to see this much in this kind of series, but it's honestly been working out. Bruce Brown's been holding his own, so credit to him. Very tenacious defensively as well. But so I agree. I think the Bucks win this series based on the way that it's been going and the lack of health that the Nets have and just the momentum. Credit to Budenholzer, actually. I thought what they did with Kevin Durant, Marco, to your point, when he was either off ball or on ball, they were picking him up at half court or maybe a little bit past that and just being physical. They were fouling him, getting away with a ton of fouls, so I think he'll get more foul calls. He had, I think, like 12 to 14 free throws last game. It should have been in the 20s because he was really getting mauled on almost every single possession in the third quarter. But credit to Budenholzer and the Bucks. They actually took advantage of what the refs are doing. I thought their rotations were pretty solid, and they kept throwing bodies of good defenders at Kevin Durant, whether it's PJ Tucker, Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. It was impressive what the Bucks did. I think they have the personnel, so credit to them. We'll see what happens later on. But let's say James Harden either returns or isn't 100%. Kyrie, I don't really think we should count on just because that ankle sprain was ugly and those things don't heal overnight. Would you hold it against Kevin Durant if they lost this series? And we'll go to this really quickly. Are you guys holding this? Like, is this, he can't do what LeBron did? Like, LeBron was able to do this sort of thing. Are you guys running with that narrative at all or no?
No way. The Bucks are really good. It's unfair. If you swap out KD for prime LeBron, I don't know if they beat this Bucks team. It'd be close. I do think prime LeBron is a better basketball player than current KD. But no, I don't hold it against him if they lose.
Okay. Marco?
Yeah, I don't either. He has Mike James as his primary ball handler right now. And LeBron, I guess at least had Mo Williams. Yeah, I'm not gonna hold it against him. I didn't hold it against LeBron when he didn't win with nothing back then. And LeBron's even better suited because he's a ball handler and he elevates others, and he's just an overall better player, as Ariel said. So I'm not gonna hold it against him.
Yeah, Kevin Durant, it's just not his game to try to get others involved. And maybe he'll be able to do it for 2 games and win 2 games in the series, which in that case, I will be ultimately impressed with Kevin Durant if he's able to win a series like this without a co-star, with Mike James, Joe Harris, and Blake Griffin as his supporting cast. But if he loses this series, I agree with you guys. What can you do? The Bucks are the better team. I will never fault a player for losing to the better team, especially if they're alone on an island. Like Kevin Durant can go for 50, and they could still very well lose this game by 20. That's just how much better I think the Bucks are without Kyrie and Harden. I mean, that's what, $65 million of salary, maybe more allocated to players that are sitting on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
It's really tough to overcome that. So if KD's pulls this off, credit to him. But if not, oh well. So obviously we are Miami Heat fans. We still want to talk about the Miami Heat. So I have a random stat with the Miami Heat. I've been doing some research, may or may not be working on something Heat related that I typically do not do. But anyways, have a stat here. Thought it was pretty interesting. Trying to look at random stats from the Heat. So there was 5 players on the Heat this year that had unassisted buckets. They scored on unassisted plays 50% or more of the time. So 50% or more of their points were scored unassisted. Take a guess who those 5 players were.
Oh, Tyler, Jimmy, Goran. I can't say Duncan. Gabe Vincent and Max Strus.
I'm going even crazier.
You got 4 of those right.
This is Precious Chua. Is that the 5th one?
No.
I was going to say Dwayne Dedman, but no, that's not it. The last guy. Who are the 4 right?
Okay, so we have Goran, Jimmy, Tyler. Shout out my friend Tyler in the comments. One of them is always Gabe. You know I have to fit that Gabe Vincent propaganda in there. Gabe Vincent is the number 5 on this list. So there's one other player. He would be the 3rd on this list.
So is it Bam?
It is not. Bam is 6th on this list.
Ooh.
He is well away from 50%, which is kind of something that I want to get to. But
yeah,
no other guesses?
I was gonna. I like the name of Mark.
No, not UD.
I think Marco might have had the name earlier. Wouldn't it be Dwayne Dedman with second chance points, stuff like that? No,
Nope.
You're shaking your head. No idea.
Nope. Shout out Amber7 in
Teo?
the comments. Kendrick Nunn
That makes sense.
with 55% or 54.8, sorry, percent of his scores were unassisted this year. Just wanted to point that out. Bam Adebayo, one thing that, we'll talk about this a little bit, but Bam was 6th on the team with 34.4% of his buckets coming unassisted. Very interesting that number is still that low. I did not think it would be that low. I thought Bam was doing more creating for himself, but at his core, in terms of a scorer, he is still a rim runner at heart. So I guess that makes sense. But let's get into what we want this offseason to look like, because it is offseason mode. We're going to have plenty of content on the offseason. I know 5 on the Floor is probably recording a podcast as we speak right now about certain fits. Some juicy tidbits might be in there. But for right now, we just have us 3. We don't have any inside sources or any of that good stuff. But we do have our own basketball intuition and knowledge. Ariel, what would you deem as a successful offseason for the Heat? What would that look like?
Well, barring any sort of miracle type of deal where you get a Dame Lillard or Kawhi Leonard, we're going to put those aside because I don't want to get people's hopes up, and I don't think any of us deem them likely or even maybe realistic. So to me, a successful offseason is you just get better. Whether that just means getting Kyle Lowry, who I think there might be something there. Like, we know about all the reports and everything that went on between him and his desire to potentially come to Miami. So I think that's very much on the table. Just get better. And I think more than anything with this Heat team, they need the rest. Like, yes, you have holes on the roster. There are players that you can plug and they fit certain needs that the Heat have. But I think more than anything, they need the time away from the game. So while the sweep at the hands of the Bucks hurt, I think that in the long term, it'll be a blessing for them because there was very short off season between the last season and this one. And so they've essentially been grinding with very little break over the last 12 months. When did the bubble resume last year? What month was that? Was that
It was
June?
they started again in July. So it was about a 3-month break.
Okay, so
they
they've
went
been
for like
going
11 months straight or 10 months
that's
straight.
tough. Mm-hmm. No, that's tough. So, I don't think that the Jimmy and the Bam that we saw in the Bucks series, and more specifically the Bam Adebayo that we saw towards the end of the season, who was substantially less aggressive, who wasn't at all looking for his shot. I don't think that that's quite who he is. He was more aggressive earlier in the season. He was taking the jumper more, the floater more. We saw more of the things that kind of left his game over the last month or two of the season and into the first round. So I don't want to speculate as to why that was, but I do think that they need a mental break. They looked spent, and personnel-wise, I love the idea of Kyle Lowry. The Jeremy Grant option earlier, that's a fun one too. If Otto Porter hits free agency, that's a guy I'm looking at. Anything that makes the team better and just get some rest. That's what they need.
Okay, valid. Marco, what does a good offseason look like?
I think it's addressing what's in front of you. You have to figure out what you're going to be next year, because I feel like they never figured out what they were this past season at all. You have to figure that out. You have to address the holes on your roster, which are, for me, the two big things are a creator on the ball who can get to the rim, whether that be a Kyle Lowry, Mike Conley, maybe Chris Paul, or anybody to that level or near it at least. And secondary would probably be get a starting four next to Bam, or at least a bigger five who can stretch the floor. Those are the two. If they get those two things, then I'm fine with their offseason. Whether what players that looks like, who knows? I just think they need to figure out who they're going to be next year. And also just take a step back from the game, like Ariel said. Like, everybody needs a break. I think we even need a break from the Heat basketball. And it feels better, like, whenever you get a full offseason. The guys are going to be different next year. And I expect a bounce back year from, like, half the roster. The only guy I don't expect it from is Jimmy, because he was so good this past year. And Jimmy even gets more rest now. He's going to maybe come back even better, maybe have his best season yet. He hasn't proven to us that he can do that. So I think a break is very much needed. Nobody gets hurt. Nobody get into trouble. Maybe you land a whale. But I think first and foremost, you have to figure out where you're going to be next year. Address the holes on your roster that you didn't last offseason, that you were scared to, because you were like, are we going to put our chips in this year? But you're going to have to figure out, maybe we do have to put our chips in eventually. So I think you have to figure out who you're going to be. That's my biggest. And if they do, that's going to be a successful offseason for them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think if you're able to find a concrete direction in which the organization can use to get better, then you definitely take that avenue, whatever it may be. Like Ariel said, Kyle Lowry is a fantastic fit. That's probably the most likely big name acquisition that the Heat can get. I got Tyler once again. We've talked at length about this. I talked about it at the end of the season. I talked about it earlier in the year. I'm a huge Malcolm Brogdon guy. I think if you're able to acquire Malcolm Brogdon, that's a bigger upgrade for this team, maybe more so than Kyle Lowry. And if I could pick them outright, I might take Brogdon. I'm going to dive into that a little bit more later on. But I think you have to get a guard. You have to get someone that can help make Bam better. In specific, I think Bam, because Jimmy, he can play with other guards and he can cut off ball and become more of a slasher and take some load off defensively or offensively, so he can play more defense and play more free safety and not have to guard the point of attack. So just getting someone like Kyle Lowry help a lot. I think you need to get players that complement Jimmy and Bam, not vice versa. I think they've been catering their approach to make players around Jimmy and Bam serviceable, when what you really should try to do is make Jimmy and Bam the stars. Specifically Bam, I really want to see him move around. But I think the biggest leap out of anybody on this team, I think it's going to come from Bam. I think Bam, if you want to look at a whale or who the whale is going to be, you get a point guard that can handle the ball, get Bam looks and pick and roll, pick and pop, whatever it may be, figure out ways to move Bam around in the offense. I think Bam is going to be the guy that takes that step. You has that aggressiveness, Arrow, like you said. That earlier in the year aggression that Bam had was electric for this team. I mean, it really looked really, really good. And then as it started to fall off is when the rest of the team caught on. So they never really were functioning, I think, at their fullest capabilities. I think the fluke will become a bit more of an aberration as opposed to the norm. Or the sweep, my bad, was a bit of an aberration. I don't think that's really indicative of who this team was. I think the Bucks are better for sure, but I think the Heat are definitely going to be back. Get a guy like Kyle Lowry and go from there. But I really think the Heat are not too far off, and that rest, that 122 days between Game 4 of getting swept and training camp, I believe, is going to be much, much needed for this team. And let's get to this dono from our guy, Christian Carduce. I think the Nets held Harden out as a fail-safe in case of Kyrie if KD got injured. Don't be surprised if he magically probable tomorrow before tip-off. He was ruled out today. I don't know how the league feels about like ruling players out and then back in. I think they would just list him as doubtful. I wouldn't be surprised if he played Game 6 though, because to Marco's point, he is getting on-court work and all that good stuff. Right. So I don't know. That would be interesting.
I mean, if they were holding him out on purpose, like,
I don't know if it's time to do it.
Yeah, if he had played earlier in the series, they might be up 3-1. It might have been over by now. You never know. They were up 2-0 going back to Milwaukee. Yeah.
Can't understate how important Harden is to any NBA roster. I mean, that dude is simply ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to have more conversations about what players in specific we want the Heat to target. I think there's a bunch of different avenues that the Heat can try to go. But the one name that's always going to pop up is Kyle Lowry. We'll see if the smoke gets bigger with that. But I saw too much confidence probably in the Heat and from the Heat's reporters, whether it's Barry Jackson, Tim Reynolds, 5 Reasons, in acquiring Kyle Lowry over the summer. It just where there's smoke, there's fire. I think there's definitely something there. So
there's a lot.
Any last words? Any last words here? Any predictions? Any bold predictions for the playoffs? Whatever it may be, agendas to push.
My bold prediction relates to, well, as far as the playoffs goes, the Suns are winning the NBA championship. And then the offseason prediction is that the Heat will get Kyle Lowry. Heat Twitter, at least about half of Heat Twitter is going to be upset. And then they're going to realize how wrong they were and that they didn't realize that Kyle Lowry is a very good basketball player and that he impacts winning more so than you can just see on the box score. You will be thankful later.
So he's a point guard, Jimmy.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit.
My one bold prediction, if you're a bettor, try putting some money on DeAndre Ayton for finals MVP. Those odds are looking kind of juicy last I saw. And my other prediction, it has nothing to do with the playoffs, but Woj tweeted out about the Board of Governors having a meeting about the shooting fouls. I guess it's not really a bold prediction. There's going to be nothing done about it. And if there is, it'll only last for about a month, just like the flopping rules.
Interesting. Oh, got another dono from Tyler here. Thank you, Tyler. For the kids, Brogdon and Lowry to Miami. Now, that's something that was brought up on 5 on the Floor, I believe in today's podcast, actually. And, I mean, once again, I've talked at length about how I think Brogdon helps this team. If Brogdon and Lowry are on this team,
that is some kind of defensive backcourt, and you got Jimmy on the wing, Bam inside.
4+ defenders, and Brogdon is switchable defensively. Kyle Lowry is a bulldog. Hey,
love it.
I will not say no to that. So, with all that being said, about to hit an hour here. We got some Hawks Sixers to watch. Thank you guys in the comments for showing up and showing out. We're going to be back at some point early next week, hopefully with a conference finals preview. And Marco, Ariel, thank you guys. We're going to have a fun night of basketball ahead. We'll see if the Clippers can fulfill my agenda or if Heat Nation's agenda of Kawhi Leonard getting ousted in 5 is going to be a possibility. So we'll see. Fun night of hoops. You guys all have a good night. Play the video, Manny.